My name is Matt, and I'm a grateful recovering addict.
What's up, Matt?
Hello, thank you for having me here this afternoon. It's a wonderful blessing. I feel honored, and I guess at the end of the day, throughout the whole day, when things are going good, things are going bad, or the good, bad, and the ugly, we ask for God's will, and I guess God found it fit for to have me here to be of service to the spirit of unity of this fellowship and program of Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm very blessed. My clean date is November 16th, 2009. I was 24 years old when I got clean. I'm 35 now, and I have a story of drug addiction, mental illness, and where I've gotten clean, gotten help, outside help, and went back to college and got a few certifications where I worked in a rehab. I've done an externship with the drug rehab. I've worked with mental health programs. Now I work with autism, and my goal is to be selfless. And anything that I ever did, that was self-willed, um, always ended up affecting myself and others, and mostly myself because most of my drama is in my head. And so what I'm learning is to have, you know, a good orderly direction in my life. And so I grew up in a family. I'm a Portuguese descent, first generation, born in America. Both my mom and dad were born in Portugal, and they moved. They came here separate, and a lot of the Portuguese, they came here because their grandparents and parents saw an opportunity to make money through fishing. And so my dad was a fisherman, and my mom was a stay-home mom. I played sports. I played soccer. I was given that game because, in Portugal, that's like protocol. And so I was pretty good. I was an athlete, and my grandfather was an alcoholic, and none of my grandparents really speak English. And so right away, I saw the differences in school. My middle name is Danilo, and it was like embarrassing. And I hung out with everyone. It's kind of like the Just for Today is like we're all accepted. Politics makes bad bedfellows, but in Narcotics Anonymous, addiction and recovery is what we have in common. And so, I never stuck with one group. I bounced around through many friends and groups, and I went I went to to elementary school, to junior high, and I went to college, and I did whatever I could to graduate. My parents were really strict, and so my grandfather brewed his own wine. He grew his own grapes, and he had two big wine barrels. And I always thought, drinking wine was for fun. It makes you laugh. And my mom always told me there's alcoholism in our family, but as a kid, you don't really see that. And it's kind of like if I had kids and with this program, Narcotics Anonymous, I could educate them with recovery in such a way that they probably wouldn't become drug addicts. Maybe so. I don't know. Uh, but Narcotics Anonymous took the obsession to use. And it happened at my first meeting. I had been astray for so long and lived such an obscene life away from people with mental illness and drinking brandy and going to Tijuana for opiates and speed. And I know we don't care what drugs they were, so I'm going to kind of leave it at that and kind of practice some autonomy and how I want to govern my message. And, you know, uh, so with that, kind of lost my train of thought. But, what happened was, um, as a kid, I was young, and I was attracted to that hippies '90s culture of graffiti and rock and roll. And there was this kid, as my dad was going to go fishing on the pier, and I wanted to go surf. And there was this like probably a 16-year-old guy there standing there with long hair, a fat chain, and some huge earrings and baggy jeans, smoking probably a Marlboro. And I thought he was the coolest hipster in the world. And I was like, man, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want an old school bike. and I just want to cruise. And I don't know, that's not my goal was never to be a drug addict, but that's what I saw and that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a surfer. I wanted to play in a band, and I became that all that in a bag of chips. And by the time I was 18, my life was very unmanageable. And in high school, I took pills, drank liquor before games, and surfed waves and went to parties. I never really had a real girlfriend. I had flings. I was super embarrassed. It was just like hard for me to communicate. And, you know, a few years back, I hit a rock bottom in recovery, and my first step was about breaking up with the love of my life. And she is a wonderful friend. She was 25 years older than me, and she had 11 years clean. I met her when I had 9 months, and we became more intimate when I had like 2 years clean. And just kind of touch base. I had a sponsor kind of walk me through the whole thing because I had never, really had a real girlfriend or significant other. And we both got tested because I was new in recovery. I had been with women on the streets, and it was a wonderful, wonderful process. We're still best of friends to this day, and I worked that first step over it, and I was able to work through some insecurities and rekindle that relationship, and still best of friends with her family, our support group. She's part of my support group. I'm part of her support group. We walk every evening, and we share life in recovery every day. There's not a day that goes by, rarely, that I don't text her, messenger, or talk to her. And she is one of the keys to my recovery. And so at 18, I was sleeping in my truck. My parents couldn't handle me. I was coming home drunk all the time. So I was like, that's cool. If you want to leave my stuff on the front porch, I'm good with that. And I slept in my truck. I slept on friends' couches. And after a while, I started getting paranoid, sleeping on the corner and in my truck, and basically going to Tijuana, working at pizza shops, and working at 7-Eleven. And what happened was my friends didn't want me around. I became like bad company. I stunk. I was very unpleasant. I had a bad attitude. I was unemployable. And so, like about a year of that, I ended up in therapy. And, the therapist thought that I had a drug addiction. She asked me if I was using. And at one point, I copped to it. And she kicked me out of her office and basically left me with my first basic text of Narcotics Anonymous. And through therapy, I ended up getting a job on fishing boats, and I saved $3,000. I bought a truck, and I was copping dope in Tijuana, and opiates, and speed, and drinking alcohol. And I got a DUI on a job that I had, and so I quit that, and I got an apartment, sold the car, and I injured my captain. It was an accident. With therapy, I was living somewhat of a responsible life with that job, but the guilt or the lack of self-esteem, it just, with this situation, I ended up quitting my job, and I went on a bender for 9 months, and I was smoking speed, hanging out in alleys with gangs, um, with graffiti, and I would wake up every morning and finish my 40 ounce of liquor or finish the brandy bottle, and I would shave my head, shave my face, and just kind of pat myself down with cologne. And I was working as a butcher, and I always had a job. Working is part of my life, and that's how I was able to sustain a drug addiction. And by that end 9 months of that bender, I was so unemployable and shot out. I couldn't even talk or walk. I couldn't walk down to the bus stop to get to work. And I got fired basically for drinking on the job. And I got fired from that job. And my parents welcomed me back home. I was 22 years old. I had been away for 4 years. I was really strange. I was like a wild animal, hanging on streets, hanging in the corner, at the parks, in between bus stops, so I could liquor up before work. And I mean, I was basically a transient. And I think that's why I ended up with a diagnosis or a mental health disorder. And It's been a long journey. Um, my dad and I got in a fight. I kind of threw him, and he kind of grabbed me, and my mom flipped, and I slept on the side of the house one night, and she dropped me off in Oceanside, California, at a homeless shelter. And I was wild. I was out there. I was like psychotic, and I was yelling at people. And about 2.5 months into the shelter, I was ready to like go up to Northern California and just hitchhike. And I tried it, but I didn't have any money and got kicked off the train. And so, by God's will, by the grace of God, a counselor at this shelter sent me to county mental health, and I got picked up by a social worker. And I called my mom. I told my mom, I was like, I'm having problems. I'm having health issues. And my parents didn't really know what drug addiction was, and I kept it such a secret. They just thought that I didn't want to cooperate in the family. They just somehow thought that, he's just not getting it. But really, I had a mental illness and a full blown drug addiction. And I was 22 years old. And a social worker found me, and I ended up with the diagnosis. And my parents welcomed me into my grandparents' house in Point Loma near Ocean Beach. And with the agreement that I would stick with this program and this youth program and do counseling and therapy. And in that, I met a counselor, an addiction specialist, who ended up having some recovery himself. And at that point, it's kind of usual to hear a recovering addict become an addiction specialist. But at that point, I thought it was the coolest thing in the whole world. Like, here comes this counselor guy that could relate to me. Last time I told the therapist that I was on drugs, she kicked me out of her office. I guess I wasn't supposed to show up under the influence. And so I got tired. I got tired of that empty alley cannon. The only thing that would shine was a bottle or a can that I could throw in my bag, get a 32 ounce of Miller, and drink that. By the time I'm halfway home, it's gone. And I guess I could start counting that bottle as 10 cents. And I just got tired. I was like depressed. I wasn't depressed or anything, but I was like that old alley just with weeds and a few cans. And I remember that there was a full bottle of like expensive, like probably like some green bottle stuff. And I opened it up. I was going to pound it. I found it, and it was filled with piss. There was like chunks in it. And I was like, oh man, like all over my hand, the piss. And I was just like, I think I'm gonna try a meeting. And I didn't know what Narcotics Anonymous was, so I went to AA. And this lady, she gave me a hug, and I think it was just that shelter and fishing and being so mentally ill and unstable that when she gave me a hug, it was like the obsession to use lifted. It was like someone wanted me around. And I think by getting kicked out, my parents, my own family didn't want me. And then my friends turned on me, or they just didn't know how to handle me. And at that point, no one knew what mental illness or drug addiction was. We were just using. And that hug, it like sent vibrations through my aura, my spirit, my body. And I just kept coming back. And around 17 days clean, an old friend that was a friend, but also a connect, called me, and I told him what I was doing. And he was just like, how'd you get off drugs? And I was like, I wasn't even that bad. You're worse than me. How could you ask me that question? But it was really a miracle the way I got off drugs, because I was really hooked on a lot of shit, And so that was like my second first step. That story. It was like a story about my life, 3 pages. And that's how where my life became unmanageable. In around 17 days, about 90 days clean, my AA sponsor told me, I think you're a drug addict. And I was like, I do too. I'm not really feeling this fellowship, but I'm grateful for it. And I started going to NA, and NA is where I identified with drug addiction. I identified with the addict who still suffers. It gave me so much hope. I identified with the hugs, the hugs heal. And the handshakes. I was just kind of like, it's all good, you know. And I ended up getting a commitment as a coffee maker across the street from where I lived, and kind of brought my brother along with me from time to time. And he's got 4 years clean now, coming up in November. My clean day is November 16th, and his is November 15th. And I've been able to become a good role model for him. At one point, when I back to that alley and just the cans and the liquor bottles and recycling, my brother called me a crackhead, and it just like changed me. It was like, damn, he no longer looks up to me, and I think I need to make some changes in my life. And so I did, and it was one of the main motivators for me to just stay on this path of Narcotics Anonymous and spirit and unity and communion with the creator and the universe, and turning it over to God and getting out of self will. My self will harmed me. It caused all of this. And God's will created all of this life for me. And when I do God's will, I mean, things just keep turning around. And one of the wonderful gifts was I rekindled that relationship with surfing. My first love was the ocean. And what I do most is I hang by the ocean. Something about it just speaks to me, and it comes to me, it comes through me. And so anytime I go for a walk, Sunset Cliffs, Ocean Beach, it's just like my home. And so I got lucked out. My parents welcomed me back. And I always say self righteously, the only reason why I got a family is because I'm clean, you know. But maybe there's some low self esteem there, the nature of our disease, self centeredness, fear of change, and forces of nature, and spirit. And so, yeah, around a gentleman told me it takes about 18 months for the obsession to use, and I was pissed because I was like, I'm doing this program and I knew everything. And but I look back and I go, it is a process. And I took a year clean, and around 9 months the obsession to use was lifted. And when I hit rock bottom around 4 years and I broke up with Lisa, um, I was mentally ill and just way out there. The obsession to use never came back. So today, one of my definitions of sanity is not picking up in a low bottom place. And then today, one of my definitions of sanity is seeking outside help. And I've always had a commitment in Narcotics Anonymous. Right now, I'm a secretary at Balboa Park on Saturday nights. Wonderful place to go if you want a vacation. Balboa Park is super awesome. There's a koi fish pond. There's wonderful museums. Not to endorse it, but it's a wonderful, beautiful place to meditate and to get with the great outdoors. And so I do that. I write tons of poetry. I sing songs. I've played in bands, done cool open mics, and recorded tons of music. I'm living my dreams, rekindling that relationship with the ocean and surfing, and is just the process. It's just been such a wonderful process. In my disease, I threw out my shoulder and just kind of gave up on my life as a surfer. And so my grandfather ended up getting sober later on in life, and he didn't do recovery. But I learned when I was studying addiction that some people, just through life circumstances, are able to clean up and get sober, or clean and serene. Um, speaking it the NA way. And NA is the only fellowship that I do. Um, I might dabble into some outside literature, and I think in the We Do or the Journey Continues book, it talks about that. At Narcotics Anonymous, when we work such a program, it takes us to outside sources, and then in hope that those outside sources take us right back to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. And so I'm always practicing affirmations. I'm always practicing God's will and just reciting spiritual principles. Like if I need to practice forgiveness, I use that word. I say surrender, forgiveness, and freedom, on and on and on. And then I ask for God's will. I just say, thy will be done. And when I got to my fourth step, I had a lot of resentments, and I went back and made amends to my mom and my dad, and they welcomed me back, and they were just so happy. They could feel the essence of my life and my heart open up with an open heart and unconditional acceptance that it just felt right. And my brother followed me in, so that motivating factor of me getting clean ended up inspiring another member of Narcotics Anonymous. And who would have thunk it that I could be a role model or just a good example. And so I went up to that shelter with Lisa, and I made an amends to the pastor up there, and because it was some kind of mission program thing. And he told me, he goes, Matt, you're one of the reasons why I keep this shelter open. To see you come back to me with 3 years clean and having amends and to own up to it is amazing. He goes, that's the reason why I keep this place open. And that just like inspired me to stay clean. That just gave me the initiative to just say, dude, you're on the right path. Keep going, seek God's will. And this program's moving mountains daily. And, what a charmed life I lead. And so it's wonderful. The holidays are great. I have a wonderful collections of movies, guitars, cool jewelry, instruments, records. I look present. I always get a good job. I don't get paid a lot, but that's cool. I have enough. I don't have to pay the connect anymore. Um, I never have to get a front and forward my whole paycheck and then live like that, uh, pawning off my life. And everything I have, I own. I bought a car, I paid it off, hard work. I'm a medical assistant. I'm not a doctor or anything, but the fact that I went to school and graduated on the president's list halfway through, like with 3.0, is a miracle. I couldn't pay attention to school for nothing. And it's just part of my journey. And nowadays I study. I hang out in libraries. I love astrology, and I'm into the universe, and it just inspires me. I wake up each day and write 3 pages in the morning. What I learned about step work is we don't need computers, special pens and papers. We just need to get it down. We just need to get it down. And our disease, it wants us to suppress that. It wants us to keep it a secret. It wants us to build, like make mountains out of molehills. And that's like the whole self-centeredness of this disease is we're as sick as our secrets. So, making amends is part of my story. It's ongoing. One of the biggest amends that I make is seeking outside help. I had to make amends to my home group. I had to make amends to my family all over again, and to my community. And um, I treat my neighbors nicely, accordingly, and very kindly. And I'm just very blessed. The obsession hasn't came back just for today to use. And I learned a lot about my human nature and basically our character defects. And what we have is that dishonesty, self-righteous, manipulated way of thinking, and that's okay. I could practice principles. I could say prayer. I could journal them all out, and that's a constructive way to cope. But what's not constructive is acting out on that nature of our disease. And it's just because I'm human. I'm a part of this world. I'm born with it. I believe everyone is. I could be wrong. But in Narcotics Anonymous, we associate them with defects and shortcomings. And one of my biggest ones is lust. I'm single, just kind of. I think a lot of people in recovery are single because they're so comfortable with themselves that they have so many hobbies and interests and with the love of the fellowship and having so many friends, that it's not that big of a deal to have to tie it all into a relationship every time, or like that feeling of despair and loneliness is just not there anymore with the fellowship. And so I just like to express that. And but it's still there, and I don't act out on it much, really. And just moving on, always making amends. And each morning that 10 step basically goes into that journal. And it's just the way that I live. And um, it's really important to set the tone. It's like that old saying, we can start the day over at any time. And I like to begin my day that way, whether it's with the Just for Today or an outside book or a journal. What it does is it starts my day in the direction that I believe is best for me. And so it's been a wonderful journey. I'm not friends with everyone, but I do love everyone. I have unconditional love. I have a small support group. It's intimate. Um, I'm kind of like a lone soldier. I surf, I walk, I ride a lot of steps. I've been through the steps like 5 or 6 times, and it's just been a long, wonderful road. Um, you know, see, um, yeah, I I learned that drugs was just a symptom of our disease. The drug was really just a way to get us cornered and turned away from God, or not the drug, but the other, like the nature of our disease, like gambling, sex, uh, stealing, lying, manipulating, cheating, all of that. If I continue to do that while I'm in recovery or clean, what it's going to do is it's going to isolate me from the herd, and and somehow the disease will find its way to kind of pry an opportunity for me to get loaded. And so it's really important to kind of nip it in the bud and kind of get those character defects and shortcomings under control. So every afternoon I kind of take a walk and uh, and I kind of just meditate. Writing, journaling is all a form of meditation. So thank God I found the identification in Narcotics Anonymous. Thank God I was able to relate to the addict who still suffers and carry a message of hope. We have a new IP about mental health, and it states, if you have a diagnosis, it's cool. You are clean, you know. And I found it really hard to relate at one point. And what's really cool is that there's always someone that pulls me aside and says, "Matt, I can relate." You know. Narcotics Anonymous unblocked me from the treasures of the world. It unblocked me from the depths of despair. It took me out of my insanity. And so this time around, what I'm learning, about the traditions and about the step work is, at 11 years clean, I still need to stay away from old people, places, and things. The disease has a way of turning my ear, perking my ear up and saying, "Hey, that's what your old friend's thinking about you," or maybe you need to go show them what's up. And it's just that's the nature of my disease, and it's like my human nature. It wants me to have conflict. And so through this first step that I worked a few months ago, it showed me, it goes, "Matt, this is where your life is becoming unmanageable. And for some reason, your old people, places, and things are showing up." And it's kind of like nowadays when I go surf, those old surf spots are real local, and it's almost like old stomping grounds, or traveling to Mexico to catch some good waves. It's like old people, places, and things, old neighborhoods. And the only difference today is I have a purpose of being there. And I have to understand that. It's like when I first got clean, can you go to a concert where there's liquor? And it's just really important to stay grounded in those steps and to make sure that obsession stays lifted each day and to ground yourself in the literature. If you're new, it is possible. You can play in bands, you can follow your dreams and rekindle those lost awakened dreams and say, this is something that is really important. Uh it's really important that I indulge here, and my goal is to just do this sport or this hobby or this goal. And I think self will, it wants to remove that from our lives, and I think the disease is best at that. And so so I'm learning now. I'm learning about self will and turning it over to the God of my understanding. And that's been a long process. I think the disease wants to say, you know, um, why don't you go back to your old friends and just say that you're clean and instead of saying, well, why don't you go back to your ocean, or why don't you go to a meeting and share on that. And the disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It wants me to use, and it's going to pry its way for the rest of my life. So I hope for the future to maybe have kids or not. It's all good. Maybe get married or not. Um, Maybe get in a relationship soon. I want to travel the world. I want to surf. I want to keep working out and walking along the oceans and praying and communing with nature. And I have a wonderful home with all this art all over the wall. And I want to maintain my life in recovery. I want to continue to rekindle the relationships that I have created in Narcotics Anonymous. I may continue to go back to school. There's so many hopes and dreams, and Narcotics Anonymous unblocks me from that denial that says you're not good enough, you won't graduate, or just sit around the house and be complacent and isolate and not walk through those uncomfortable feelings. And what a journey it's been. My parents have seen me live 11 years clean. All my grandparents, except for one, has seen me clean and stable. I continue to work the program. Sometimes I feel there's like a hierarchy, but what I know in our literature is that we're all equals. There's no one better. We're all the same. We all identify with addiction and recovery. We have come from all walks of life, and it's really important to practice that unconditional acceptance and just unconditionally just have acceptance. And sometimes I say, well, that's just unacceptable. Well, maybe I just need to have some self acceptance there and just say, you're a part of this universe, you're a part of this program. Narcotics Anonymous helps save your life. Don't allow NA to take away what it gave you or something that's that sane. And if I didn't stand for something, I wouldn't fall for anything. And what a wonderful gift. I've sought outside meditation centers. Um, I I participated in Narcotics Anonymous regularly. I've spoken to the youth, people with mental illness. I'm always lending a helping hand to the homeless. Um, I'm welcomed. It's an honor to say, Matt, we would love to have you here and carry the message of hope. And it is possible to stay clean with a mental health disorder. Um, it is possible to get clean as a youth at 24 years old or younger. It's never too late. You could be a musician, you could be an artist, you know, those broken dreams of being a gutter addict with a guitar is a lie. There is hope for all people, no matter where you've been and who you are. There's hope, and there's that rare person that just through life circumstances can say, I need a change. And they do at some certain age. But for me, I needed a fellowship. I needed blockage. I needed safety. I needed a safety net. And Narcotics Anonymous is that safety net. So I've had many spiritual awakenings, but one of them was to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. Um, Journaling, walking, writing poetry, playing the guitar, surfing waves, talking with a friend. We're not talking with a friend, but that's all meditation for me. And each morning I have 3 pages of meditation. It's like a Western form of meditation. And through prayer, um, whether I just ask for God's will or just say, Thy will be done, or ask for unconditional acceptance or unconditional surrender, um, or continue to just ask for God's grace, peace, and serenity, and to allow Him to give me the strength to walk through these obstacles in life, um, it's a wonderful practice. I heard it over and over, work 10, 11, and 12, and that's all you have to do. But every time I open that step working guide, it always says, like, welcome back to the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. It's really, for me, it's really important. I prefer the cycle over and over and over again. I worked that tradition book, the new one, the Spirit Unity. And one of my favorite traditions, it talked about how, I like to govern the way that I live my life. And, part of me wants to say, well, that's autonomy. Autonomy is the opportunity to self govern the way that I live my life. But the truth is, God has all authority. And it's really important for me to turn to God, and not turn to those old people, places, and things, and not go to Under Ocean Beach Pier and hang around people that are using, or to always have a purpose where I'm going, hey, Matt, why are you going there? Well, I want to read, or I want to go for a walk. I want to check the ocean. That's where I want to spend my life. That's where I commune with my higher power. Well, then go, then go. You're safe. You have NA, and the obsession to use has been lifted. And in that 12 steps, it talks about having had a spiritual awakening. As a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts who still suffers. This is a 12 step, you know. If you don't like it all, just take what you can and leave the rest, and apply that to your life uh, at work, take it home, journal about it, write about it, pray on it, call your sponsor, make a friend, reach out, give your number out. Don't sell yourself short. That's what addiction did, man. It robbed me of my sanity. It robbed me of my reality, and my reality became really real, and at such a young age. And that's kind of like my story through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. um I just keep working steps. I keep working the traditions, and when I'm learning about unity, and is trying to cooperate, and not always resisting the opportunities that come my way. Oh, you don't need to share at that Bluesfest. You're going to be nervous all day. You should cancel, or why did you agree to this? And that's all disunity. That's my disease. It's prying its way to get me into a corner and say, now is an opportunity for you to take a drink, or do a line. And it's a trip. You know So I think that I had a lot of angels watching over me in my disease. I think I had a guardian angel. I think I had the spirit, the wind, telling me and guiding me and bringing comfort to my heart and saying, Matt, you're going down the wrong path. you know, go this way, don't give up. And I was able to. I was able to walk into a room and introduce myself as a drug addict. So, what a life! What a life! I hope to continue. I hope to go on some cool vacations. I hope to make wonderful friendships and continue to read, to write, and to educate, and to work hard on myself and never give up. Give myself a break. And what time do we begin?
You're good for another however long you'd like to go. Really, you could go another 15 to 20 minutes if you'd like. We technically started almost an hour ago.
Oh, we did. Okay.
It
Okay,
was
I'm
about
gonna wrap it up. I'm an artist, and sometimes I enjoy, if I can't always say the prayers, sometimes I just like to write them. And if I can't always say the affirmation or the spiritual principle, I like to paint them. And I have affirmations all over my room. It's like a sanctuary. It's the foundation where I live my life. And for that, I'm forever grateful of Narcotics Anonymous. There was no way that I could maintain a life of sanity and recovery without Narcotics Anonymous. It would be very rare. And with God's grace and with the strength and the encouragement, I am forever blessed. Thank you for allowing me to carry the message of hope. Thank you.